Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chair and Ranking Member Lee, and thanks to all the witnesses today for your work. Ms. Goldstein, I want to start with a question to you. I recently wrote to several agencies, including the Department of Justice and the Treasury, highlighting a cyber attack on the town of Peterborough, New Hampshire. The perpetrators quickly converted most of the $2.3 million, which in a small town in New Hampshire, I can assure you, is a lot of money, in taxpayer dollars that they stole, and they converted it into cryptocurrency, making it unrecoverable. What actions can agencies take to prevent this kind of criminal activity, such as the rapid conversion of illicit funds into cryptocurrency?
Senator, thank you for your question. There are 4 suggestions that I have. The first is that a large portion of this marketplace likely falls under existing securities laws, and applying those rules, including rules that apply to broker-dealers, I think would help stop illicit actors' ability to move money anonymously and help prevent that sort of ransomware conversion. My second suggestion is the Treasury Department can enforce some guidance that they just put out in October. OFAC put out this clarification that if you do digital assets, you need to comply with sanctions. You need to check whoever is using your platform against the sanctions list. And I think the Treasury Department enforcing that guidance would be a good step forward. The third is anything the agencies can do with your help if needed to promote more information sharing can always help. FinCEN analysts can put out reports as a result of that. And the last thing I would suggest is that FinCEN has a very specific set of financial regulations regarding to financial crimes specifically. And I know you're already talking to them about this, but I think strong enforcement of those would also be helpful.
Okay, thank you so much. Mr. Massoud, in the letters that I wrote, I emphasized how stronger know your customer requirements for cryptocurrency exchanges can curtail the criminal use of cryptocurrency. It becomes much harder to evade law enforcement when your name is attached to the cryptocurrency wallet you're using to commit crimes like ransomware attacks, drug trafficking, and money laundering. How could stronger know your customer requirements for cryptocurrency exchanges help authorities prevent and prosecute criminal uses of cryptocurrency?
Thank you for the question, Senator. It's extremely important, and one big example of this is what's happening with ransomware. There was a recent FinCEN report just issued a couple of weeks ago that documented how ransomware is increasing rapidly. I think the Colonial Pipeline incident was a real wake-up call, too, because that's a company that didn't have a lot of personal identifying information. It was an infrastructure company, and yet it was hit. I think we're going to see more of that. The FinCEN report talks about how these illicit actors often act through the crypto exchanges. They reuse addresses. They make multiple transfers of the illicit profits so they can't be traced. And, KYC is critical here, and we need to bolster, FinCEN in this. But it's more than that. We also have to have a structure of regulation around these exchanges. Coinbase, Kraken, these other exchanges, they're not subject to the same standards that we have for securities and derivatives exchanges. They're registered as money transmitters. That's a pretty light touch of regulation. They don't have standards to prevent fraud, to prevent conflicts of interest, to prevent things like wash trading. Wash trading is where you essentially trade with yourself or with an affiliate. Right. That's very, very common. And there's a very interesting CFTC action here. The CFTC only regulates derivatives contracts. So to say that, the SEC or the CFTC has power over these exchanges is wrong, because the CFTC can't regulate that cash market for Bitcoin any more than it can regulate the sale of cows just because it regulates cattle futures.
Okay.
And yet it does have very limited power to bring fraud actions, but that takes a lot of resources to do. They did bring one against Coinbase, but even one of the Republican commissioners said, this is going to mislead the public into thinking that we regulate these exchanges, and we don't. So it's a broader problem than just KYC standards, but that's critical.
Okay, that's very helpful. Thank you. One more question, again for you, Ms. Goldstein. I recently introduced a bipartisan bill with Senator Ernst that would require Treasury to report to Congress on how cryptocurrency is used globally and its effects on global supply chains. How has cryptocurrency mining affected global supply chains in recent years, including for critical technologies such as semiconductors?
Well, Senator, I commend you and your fellow senator for the bill and the report that you request. Essentially, crypto mining has an arms race. Their technology needs to improve all the time so they can keep up and make money, and that means often they have to replace the equipment very fast, and that means more demand for semiconductors. And that means less, electronics makers who need semiconductors for other things are able to access them. So I do think that there's a lot of research in particular showing, for example, graphics card need secondhand goes in conjunction with the price of ether, for example.
Okay. Thank you very much, and thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Senator.